You're listening to
Sticky Note Conversations with Erika Washington. Way below acceptable. Way below acceptable.
On this week's episode,
everybody wants to win. I get it. We're in this to win. Not everybody's doing this work because they want change. And I want to believe, because I truly believe in my heart that I'm trying to do this work because I want change. And this is another way for me to help enact change.
Below acceptable.
Hey there, Sticky Note listeners. It's your host, Erika Washington, and I am excited to bring you another episode of Sticky Note Conversations. The primary is over. All the ballots have been counted, and there's a little bit of a break between the primary now and the general in November. So I thought this is a great time to talk to some various folks in all parts of the political atmosphere. So we obviously talked to candidates, we talked to folks who won, we talked to folks who lost, but I thought what would be a great conversation this week is to talk to a political operative. That's what I'm going to call her, political operative. But a colleague of mine and friend, Cecia Alvarado, she is an independent political consultant, and she has been working in Nevada for a number of years, specifically on campaigns and inside the Latino community. And I thought I want to pick her brain a little bit about how she thought this primary went, what to expect with the upcoming midterm general election in November, but also just find out what's going on in the Latino community and see what's happening. That's all. Just so it's going to be a fun conversation. So thanks for joining us, and sit back and enjoy Sticky Note Conversations. Cecia, welcome to Sticky Note Conversations. I'm so happy for you to be here.
Hola, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited. I feel so honored to join you.
Well, I'm honored that you have the time because you're a busy lady.
I appreciate it, but I feel honored because we always think about, who wants to hear what I have to say. So thank you.
Well, I do. I for sure want to hear what you have
always
to say.
Do. And I know, and that's Erika. You always make space and create space for others. So I appreciate you. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, yay. So I want to start off, and I had asked you for your bio. I asked for everyone's bio, because even people that I think that I know, I always learn something from them or about them that I didn't know, because sometimes I think, especially when we are in the same line of work or we see each other all the time, we think we know someone and realize that we don't sometimes sit down and ask the questions. And I want to start with a little bit about your origin story, because I didn't know that you came to the United States at 16 alone. So tell me a little bit about who Cecia was at 16 and how you came from Costa Rica to the United States. What was that like, and what were you feeling stepping into this unknown place?
Yeah, well, it happened so fast. When I look back, I just remember my parents getting my visa and telling me that I was moving to the U.S., even though I was not planning on making the move. I never really talk about it. It's just really happening overnight. So I went through a lot, just processing that my parents had sent me to live here by myself. I had a brother that been living in the U.S. For a few years before I moved here. So it was a big adjustment coming in, and I thought I was coming to work like everybody else. But then when I got here, we were told that I was a minor, so I needed to go to school. And I enrolled in school, and that's how my story began, because I moved here in August, and that's when we used to start school. I think it was the first week of September, last week of August. So maybe I was here for 2 weeks, and I was enrolled in high school.
What grade?
So here's the thing. So at 16, I was supposed to be, I think, a junior. but this is 2000. So back then, we didn't have the ELL, the English language learner programs that we have in place now. So they put me back in ninth grade. So I was a 16-year-old in ninth grade. Yes. So it was a whole journey. So I was held back because also they needed all of my transfers from Costa Rica. And it's 2000. I come from a third world country too. So we didn't have the internet. Let me scan this paperwork or request it. We have to request it through mail. Back then, to call our countries, you used to have to buy a calling card. So when you buy a card with a $10 credit, and I just got here. I used to get $20 a week. So to buy a calling card to call my family was half of my weekly allowance. And with those $20, that's what I used to eat with and go to school. So that was my full-on allowance on a weekly basis. So anyways, it took a while for me to get my transcripts. Long story short, they just held me back to ninth grade so I could learn English and while finishing high school. I mean, we can dissect like what it's like to be an immigrant, especially back then when we didn't have any kind of programs to help you transition, adapt into the culture. So fast forward to 10th grade, I was going to school in the morning and going to ninth school so I can catch up and graduate. And I ended up graduating at, I think it was 18 when I graduated. So
you didn't have to do all 4 years over then. You were able to escalate it by basically doubling up your class load. That's amazing. What state did you come to when you moved here?
Straight to Nevada.
Oh, you've been in Nevada the whole time. Okay.
The whole time, yeah. 26 years now.
Well, it sounds like there was very little conversation with your parents, which I think is not a unique scenario for a lot of young people. Parents make decisions for children and say, we think this is what's best for you. This is what you're going to go do. Was that difficult to be so far away, even if you had a brother here, to be so far away from what you knew as your life and friends and all of that? At 16, there's so much rebellion and exploration and all of that. And then you had to come here and not speak English, but then also still navigate the cultural differences. And it's dry and hot, and Costa Rica is not dry. Were you resentful at all, or were you happy to be here?
I think a little bit of everything. I think that I definitely dealt with a lot of feelings, and I think I rarely talk about my immigrant story, and I think I still, part of me holds some feelings of you could say a little bit of a grudge or resentful to my parents, because at that time I felt like they were getting rid of me. And not only that, after being here for 6 months, my brother moved to the East Coast, and he dropped me off to live with a lady that I met the day I moved in with her. And so it was chain after change, and then having to go to school in the morning, go to school after school, and then still work because I needed to survive. So I was working at McDonald's until 11 o'clock. So yeah, I have to work throughout high school and really just navigate life and a new culture, a new language, everything. And then you think, I went to a high school, I graduated from Desert Pines, very Latino school. But it's also new cultures. I'm Costa Rican. The way that I speak Spanish, it's very different from the way that my Mexican friends spoke Spanish. So it wasn't just American culture. It was all of these cultures around me that I needed to adapt, assimilate, learn. So yeah, definitely was not an easy ride. And now that I look back too, is a lot of it was, well, people didn't believe that, people that look like me could graduate high school. So the programs in place the resources were so limited. And I was a good student. Despite everything, I was a good student. But I remember meeting with my counselor because I received a letter from University of San Diego, and I wanted to go to school to be a journalist. That was my thing. I really wanted to be a journalist. So I received a letter from University of San Diego, and I got offered half a scholarship. And my school counselor asked me if I had money, like, where are you going to get the money? And I was like, I don't know. I don't have any money. So he gave me back the letter and said, well, don't worry about the states. The school is for people with money. So anytime any college fair, any conversation around college, we were never part of those. And it wasn't just me, it was a lot of my friends too. We were never part of those conversations because we didn't have any money. And we were told the college was for people that had money. Where are you going to get the other half? That's what he told me. Where are you going to get the other half? You know how expensive San Diego is? And so I remember getting letters from University of Hawaii, and I am like, okay, this is not for me because I can't afford to go to school.
You said that you don't really talk about your immigrant story. Why?
Every story is unique. And the reality is that everybody's story is unique to them and their own journey and their own experience. I think it was very painful it has been very painful to me to revisit, my beginnings here. I used to work at 9. There was a company at first, I think it was maybe like the first month I was here. I used to work from Friday through Sunday, cleaning restaurants and even bars. At 16, they would take me to clean bars. Like, I have no idea, right? You have no idea. So all these people and adults saw this, and no one ever said anything. I remember just going into bathrooms at bars that were fully open, and I'm like cleaning toilets. And you know how much I was getting paid at 9? $20.
$20 a night.
$20 a night. That's how much I was getting paid. So work a full weekend. We used to go in and I can't remember, it was like 9, 10, but until maybe 3, 4 in the morning, because sometimes they would buy us breakfast. And I was like, oh, it's so nice of them to buy us, a free meal. So until all the way until the next day, probably working 8, 10 hours. And I was getting paid $20 for that night. When I lived in Costa Rica, I used to babysit for $20 a week. So coming into the U.S. and working $20 a night, I thought, I was like, oh my God, I make in a night what I used to make there in a week. And I'm pretty sure.
But not realizing they're taking advantage of you with
exploiting. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Exploitation 100%. $20 a night. A 16-year-old cleaning toilets and like around drunk people.
You mentioned that your Spanish was different than some of the other folks that you went to school with. And I think it's a good point to highlight, because I always say when I'm talking about Black folks, we're not a monolith. Like, there are different layers and textures to us and our experiences and our cultures, and they're not all the same. And the same obviously can be said for the Latino community or the Hispanic community, depending on how you identify, but also lumping immigrants or immigrants that come from south of the border, and I'm using air quotations, and assuming everyone shares that same experience or even speaks the same sort of language, because there's dialect differences, obviously, but it's not discussed enough. And so I think that brings up a really good point of like fast forwarding a little bit into politics of how you decided, or if it was decided for you to jump into this world of politics. Like, what brought you from being a 16-year-old working triple time with school and work to getting to a point where then you immersed yourself into the political world?
I think our own experiences, you can't. This system is so broken. And there was for a while, I mean, I move on to a different life. And just to, before I move on to my story, and I said it's unique because, I came here with a visa. And so it makes it unique because other people just had it harder than me. So to me, sometimes it feels like I shouldn't complain. I've lived being undocumented for a short period of time, but sure enough, there's people that have spent their entire lives here undocumented. So seeing a system that since the day I arrived in this country feels that it's a system that was not set up for me. And for a while, I used to feel that way. I used to feel and think that this system it's not for people that look like me. The system is for white people, and everybody else, we're all taking, from them because that's what you used to be told. You're taking our education resources. This is what we don't have programs for you. You're taking job. You hear this so much that if you don't know any better, you believe it. And there's that going into politics. A lot of our communities believe it. So fast forward to 2016. I already have with a mother. I'd been married, divorced by then. And remember when Donald Trump launched his campaign attacking, specifically in his speech, Mexicans, right? But we know, like you said, it's even though our experiences and our cultures are so different, everybody else thinks that we're all the same. So when Donald Trump was attacking Mexicans, and regardless if it was just to them, I felt offended. I reflected on what does this mean, because my daughter asked me why he was saying the things that he was saying and what that meant. And I really just had a moment where like, what am I doing with my life? I've always been very involved. Again, despite being an immigrant and not speaking Spanish, I was very involved in high school. I was part of clubs, community service, because I wanted to build a community that I wanted to be part of it. So I was very involved in my school and doing work with our clubs and community service and whatnot. And so it just allowed me to take a step back and reflect on what I was doing and what I had to offer my community when someone was attacking us. And we've always been under different attacks, but this attack was coming directly from someone who wanted to become president at that time. So it really made me reflect on what I was doing with my life. I had a very good cushion job in the private sector, but I felt a need to do more. So I started getting involved, looking for nonprofits, especially Latino nonprofits, to volunteer. I volunteered for the Hillary Clinton campaign. Any free time I had, I volunteer. I used to bring my daughter to rallies, show her that hateful narrative was not welcome. So that's how I first got started. I got started just trying to volunteer, trying to get back into the community. And then I was recruited by a nonprofit to work for them.
You're listening to
Sticky Note Conversations with Erika Washington.
When I think about when we first met, I think that's probably where our stories intersect. There is you were working for this nonprofit, and I remember distinctly having a meeting with you. And we sat down in our office, and this is when Make You Work at the little office. And we were talking, and you were telling me about your daughter. And you were telling me about how frustrated you were with like how things were going, right? And like you were like, I want to do more. And I remember distinctly you asking a lot of questions and wanting to know what we were working on and all of that. And I think I knew then that you were serious about being in this work for a long time, because people come and go. Campaign cycles, you see folks and then you don't see them again, or you see folks and then they go off and they're going to other states and sort of floating around. But I could tell that you were at least a long timer that you were planning on being in this work to advocate for your community on a wide variety of issues. When Donald Trump won the election and the numbers came out, and there was such a large amount of Latino voters that voted for Donald Trump, what were your thoughts around there? What do you think that was and how that came to be?
Oh, gosh, I remember everybody calling me, every Latino I knew. And again, I was not working politics by then. I was just a volunteer, but I'm very involved in my church. To people, I was like, what does this mean? And we were all scared. Honestly, we were all scared. And yes, a lot of Latinos voted for him the first time and the second time. A lot of stories about that. And we can unpack why, right? Why are the community, why are Latinos supporting a man that's against us, right? Voting against our own interests. We hear this a lot. But personally, how I felt, again, is like I gotta do more. I gotta help. I gotta get involved. This is also the result of Latinos like me that have been just living their life, not paying attention to politics, and not understanding the impact that politics have and the consequences of elections, and just felt like this is the consequence of not paying attention.
Have you talked to anyone in particular in the community? Have you or spent time talking to, I guess, regular everyday voters and asking them, or people telling you why they thought he was a better choice?
Yeah, first and second time, they, because he's talking to them about the things that matter, the issues that matter to our community. And the reality is that this is, voted from Latinos. We know that he's against us, but we at least we know. We don't know what the Democrats, we don't know where they stand. Because a lot of the policies, the anti-immigration policies that we have now came from the Obama era, came from the Clinton era. So Republicans just are weaponizing the policies. And so for a lot of Latinos we know what he's about. We don't know what the Democrats are about. And I heard it the first time and I heard it the second time. A lot of, he kept his promise. Even if the promise was against us, deporting more of our community, separated families, but he delivered on those promises. And we need people that can keep the promise. And they just they feel like the Democrats are not delivering for them. Bad or good, they don't know what they stand for. And that has always been my biggest challenge, because I don't work with Republicans. And I wish that our party can do better in messaging, especially Latinos, and not just the immigrants, first, second generation Latinos. So it really is people believing Trump in every promise that he made, good or bad for us. But according to a lot of the Latinos that I spoke to, it's that Donald Trump kept his promises.
So it's really more about the monster that you know versus the one that you don't, and not wanting the surprises. How would you describe your work, or what it is that you do?
I am still trying to find my place. I'm a woman of faith, and I believe that, I want to serve the community. I want to be part of the change. I want to be part of conversations that drive change in our communities. I worked in nonprofits for a few years, and it was one of the best experiences, because We also get to build community. We're not isolated. Now, the work that I do, I'm more isolated because I'm a consultant. And one thing that I bothered me when I was doing the nonprofit work is how even in the political space is so inclusive to certain demographics. And women that look like us, especially, they don't get the support that everybody else gets. And you're part of the leaders in Vegas, and anybody that wants to run for office is going to reach out to you probably before they reach out to even donors, or they want to know how you feel about them, with the issues that you care about, the community that you represent. And everybody that used to want to meet with me was just people that never looked like us. Like, when am I going to get to meet with a Latina running for office or a Black woman running for office? I keep meeting with this man, and none of them never looked like us. And I realized it was because nobody wants to represent people that look like us, right? The big consultants, the political folks, everybody wants to win. I get it. We're in this to win. Not everybody's doing this work because they want change. And I want to believe, because I truly believe in my heart, that I'm trying to do this work because I want change. And this is another way for me to help enact change. Is that I can be that resource, I can be that campaign manager or consultant for people that otherwise other consultants won't even take a meeting with them. And so I hope, and I'm still trying to find my way. Is it through consulting? Is it through running nonprofit? Is it through, am I going to run for office one day? I don't know. All I know is that I'm trying. I'm trying because I just don't want to be that person that's just went on with life and didn't pay attention to politics. I want to be part of that change, and at some level, because this is a monster to change.
It is. And I realized a long time ago that this job, this career that I didn't know was even a job. When I was in high school, I didn't know I could say, when I grow up, I want to be an executive director of a nonprofit organization and work in politics and advocate for and alongside Black women and other women of color to advocate for change of policy. I didn't know any of that it was even a possibility. And now that I know that it is, and now that I've been doing this work, I don't know that I could do anything else, because I believe I was called to this. And I also believe that the seeds that I have planted, I may not see the fruit actually come to pass. I may not actually see all of the blossoms or the full peak of it, but that hopefully whatever work I've done, whatever people I've talked to or maybe given some advice to or worked with or worked for me, that they go on and do great things. And I may not see it, but know that it's still going to happen. And that legacy, that ripple effect, stays moving long after I do. That even when I'm dead and gone, that something I did helps someone else. And I think that's what keeps me moving and doing this work, because it's hard and it's heartbreaking. It can be really heartbreaking, especially when you believe in something or you believe in someone, a candidate or an issue or whatever it is, and then it doesn't happen.
Yeah, it is. And just so you know, I mean, you're definitely building a legacy. And a lot of women like myself look up to you. We see you so unapologetic, such a strong woman. Like, you always know what to say. And I know a lot of women that have been influenced by you and empowered by you. So just Yeah, and I'm one of them, definitely one of them. And we've had a lot of conversations around this and have our own conversations. And so I know for a fact that you're building a legacy, and you see your work, the fruits of your work. You're seeing that in the work you
that's
do
so
with
sweet of you.
policy. But it's a monster, Erika. And sometimes it feels like, am I really making a difference here? Does it even matter? But you always find little signs that validates your work, what you do. And, speaking of legacies, I always say, if I'm gone today, what would people tell my daughter? What would they say? When my daughter remembered me? And for me, I do think about my work, and I think about how I can help and impact others. We got to change the system. And I strongly believe that the way that we change the system is to changing the people that are making policy, the people that are representing us. And it's an uphill battle for all of us doing this work, for the candidates, and especially women, especially if you are the underdog, or you are the candidate with the least money. I mean, there's a lot of factors that come into place, but at least myself, I wanted to be that person. And I started consulting and doing the political work, because I truly believe that we got to try. And you work with a lot of young people. I still go to high schools and talk to young people, because we got to get them to take action. We got to get them to understand how important politics is. And I also understand why they just don't believe that change can happen. Someone once told me that our struggles are so big that we may not see change in our lifetime, but you gotta keep trying. So all this to say is trying to find my way and my place in a system that was not built for people that look like me, people that speak like me, that sound like me, with my background. And you just got to change that, because that's how we bring hope back into our community, so people can believe in politics. Sometimes you win, sometimes you don't, but the only way to learn how to win is by losing. You have to, and you got to rebuild it. And I'm also learning. I used to take it back personal, because I see the work that a lot of, especially the women that I work with, that I help, that they have to work 5 times harder than your typical candidate just to sometimes make it in second or third place.
I think that's really important, that sometimes you win by losing. I think that is a really powerful statement.
Hi, this is Cecia Alvarado, and you are listening to Sticky Note Conversations.
Latino voters are sometimes called the new American majority, and they're one of the fastest growing segments of the population. And so they have a lot of power and influence, and it can be used for good. It can be used for bad. It can be used for progress. It can be used to set us back. How do you educate this new American majority on how to use that power that brings people together and forward? What does that look like? Or how do we make the communities more cohesive in wanting to work together?
Yeah. So when I was a nonprofit, we used to help people become citizens, and really being part of full circle, helping them become a citizen, going to their ceremony, register them to vote. And we used to help them vote. And we were nonpartisan, so we never got into like, you should vote for this person. It was more of the educational partisanship, and one of those funny stories is that we had these two sisters that were older ladies, help them to the point that we want to translate at their citizenship interview, got them to register to vote. We personally took them to vote. We never asked them who they were voting for. We assumed like they're going to vote for Biden because why would you vote for Trump? Drop them off and they're hugging us like, I finally got to vote for Donald Trump. And I was like, girl, we spent a whole year helping you become a citizen, but that's what we got to do, right? And so for our communities, it's different for me now because my clients, if I'm working a campaign, we get involved, as a campaign, after they are citizens. When I was a nonprofit, being part of that process and having more organizations be part of those processes is a way of empowering them and educating them in front of voting. For those new citizens, is something that they look forward to. I'm still not a citizen. I'm waiting, and especially this year, all the processes have been delayed. I had my citizenship appointment back in March, and now they don't approve it. They'll let you know. So it's been a year, and I'm still waiting to hear back. So I can't wait until I become a citizen because I want to vote. I'm 42. And I've never been able to vote in my life. And that makes me sad. And I know so that's part of why I do this work, because I can't vote. The only way that I can feel that I'm part of the change is by doing the work, by helping people, by empowering my community. So when we get people excited to vote, empower them, you're going to see that translate into more people getting out to vote. But we got to educate our communities. And really not every campaign or political party is invested in doing that. They'll come and talk to our community maybe by October. Yeah, because October and half of September and October is Hispanic Heritage Month. So they'll do the mariachi politics as usual. And then that's how you just get a percentage. And we don't learn that we got to talk to, especially Latino voters, about more than immigration. And you ask, why are Latinos voting against their own interests, especially voting for Trump, who really just want all of us removed one way or another, whether you came here with a visa or documented and that you have status or not. You just don't want us here. And it's because, again, like I said at the beginning, I was part of a broken system, and part of me felt like this is it. This is the way it is because I don't belong here. And so there's also this sentiment of like, we don't have enough space for all immigrants. So it's okay to get rid of some of them because, some of us, I hear the stories. Well, my parents came here 40 years ago. They waited 20 years to adjust the status. They never asked for anything for free, because that is like one of the biggest offenses that you can get Latino. It's like, oh, you can come and get this for free. No, I want to work. I want to earn it. There's this pride on working, and we never asked anything for free. And the Democrats are giving some countries relief with TPS or DACA, whatnot, and they just ruin it for the rest of us. So you got to get rid of some of them. It's very unfortunate that these are real conversations that are happening in our community, a very divisive community when it comes to the immigrants, because everybody feels that you got to go through all the struggles as the rest of us for you to earn your right to be here. And so it becomes almost as if like we don't have enough space for all of you, right? So when you hear the narrative of housing is not affordable because of immigrants, a lot of people believe it because they feel like, well, yes, it used to be less of us, and now if there's more people buying houses, which is not true. That's not the reason, right? But people believe it. People believe it because nobody else is talking about why housing is not affordable. So you're going to believe the part that's talking about it.
And that makes a lot of sense. We, as an organization, had done a multitude of pop-ups over the years. And we did a pop-up near Department of Health and Welfare number of years ago and asked folks, like, what are your biggest concerns? And if candidates were here right now, what would you tell them that you need and all of that? And there were people who were actively on welfare. They were on assistance, public assistance, who had said that they didn't want to see the minimum wage raised because they thought that that meant if the minimum wage is raised, that the cost of living would go up and then they still wouldn't be able to afford basic groceries. And they talked about housing and so many different things. And a lot of things they said sounded like it was pretty much anti what they needed, that it was that if they were voting, that it probably would sound like they were voting against their best interest, because I think people have been fed certain lines and saying, you know, you have to work for this in this way. And if you don't work this hard, then you don't deserve to have a good job. You don't deserve to have a nice place to live. You don't deserve for your kids to go to a good school unless you go through all of these hardships. And most people do want to work. Most people do want to have nice things, and they want the best for their children. And I know this for a fact, no matter what color you are, no matter what your class or station is in life, you want more for yourself and for your children. And people don't necessarily want to be dependent on the government for assistance, but assistance should be there. Instead of seeing it as an entitlement program that we are all entitled to because something may happen. And if something does happen, we should have access to resources to help us stay afloat so that we're not hungry and that we're not homeless. It's looked at as you need to look down on people because they're on assistance or what have you, or if they didn't work as hard, they don't deserve. But none of us should have to work so hard. No one should have to work for $20 a night cleaning toilets in order to have some money in order to eat anything, and to think that a free breakfast is a perk, that sort of thing. But we get put in these cycles. And I think that comes from those who've never had to clean a toilet, those who've never had to work that hard, have ingrained that into other people. And I think that, for me, I think that's a part of the problem. But thinking about Democrats specifically, and you said something a little earlier about sometimes folks don't know what their purpose is, and that's why people may vote elsewhere. What is it that you think Democrats are getting wrong, especially when talking to the Latino community or immigrant community? Where are they missing the mark?
It's definitely the narrative and also the way that we celebrate our wins. But the Biden administration had great accomplishments, and we barely heard of any of them. And Republicans know how to celebrate their wins, and they have very consistent narrative, even if they're just making things up. Because half of things they just make it up. But who's debunking anything? Not us. I always tell people, like, you gotta think about the American dream, like jobs. You want to be able to own a home. You talk to voters about, and immigrant voters and this also apply a lot to the API community. How you can become a business owner. That is, goal to them, because it's part of the American dream. Like, who doesn't want to own their own business? Talk about education. We want our kids to go to good schools. And talk about safety. The reality is that immigrants and Latinos, they have a different view of law enforcement. And because they want to live in safe community, because they've also have different experiences. And so all this to say, the only people talking about the economy and jobs and the American dream feels like sometimes it's the Republicans. And the problem is that we don't talk about these issues unless there's an election. And I understand we need resources. We've been there. We always talk about resources, but we're not having this conversation. We just passed the primary the Democratic Party has a lot of catching up to do with the Latino communities, because the other side is already running ads, forming coalitions, having weekly meetings. And that's the part that frustrates me, is that we're waiting until October to talk to Latinos. And they think that is, why would you vote for a Republican again when the Republicans are trying to remove you, right? But they use the narrative is only the criminals. We know that's not true. But again, you're talking to a community that wants to live in a safe community. You're talking to immigrants that feel like we don't have enough space for everybody. I want to be able to buy a home. And if the Republicans are telling me that the reason why I can't afford a home is because of the immigrants, then get them out. This is why you go to East Las Vegas. There's people in East Las Vegas that they never leave that bubble of East Las Vegas. They've never been to Summerlin. They've never been to a Centennial, because they go to work and they go back into their communities and they're just waiting for their turn. Because that's how it feels when you're going through an immigration process, that you have to wait your turn. Because all the processes sometimes are by country. The processing periods are based on like wherever you born, everything. So everything feels here like you just have to wait your turn. So when that has been still on us since our countries, this is what we know, right? In our countries, like you got to work hard for. You want something, you have to work for it. You cannot ask for anything for free. You have to wait your turn. You have to be grateful. You have to respect authority. And that's what we're trying to do here. So the Republicans are always winning the narrative, the economy narrative. They're winning, and even the immigration narrative, even if it's the wrong one, but they're the ones talking about it.
To that point of people just going to work and coming home and staying in their bubbles, it makes me think about the fact that when people stay in their bubbles that way, it isolates them and it keeps them from knowing about what's happening in other communities. And I think that's a part of the divisiveness that keeps us from coming together. Different folks from different backgrounds, we call it, the Black and Brown coalitions, or, you throw in API and all these other folks. And if everyone's just staying in their lane and just staying in their bubbles, then it's easy to believe the rhetoric that immigrants are taking our jobs, or that the immigrants are causing the crime, or that the Black folks are the reason why you can't have this, or they're all on welfare, and all of the different narratives that are spoken can be easily believed if you haven't had an opportunity to experience people at a community level, not just seeing them in passing at a store, but actually making friends with, working with, hanging out, going to each other's homes for a conversation, whether it's coffee or a birthday party or whatever it is, spending time at the park with play dates with your children. You miss out on getting to know people as people. And I think especially in Vegas, that was one of the things that was probably hardest for me to adjust to, was the separateness of community. I mean, it's very hot. So you're not hanging out outside on your porch the way that you would in the Midwest, or even on the East Coast, or in the backyard as much. And we don't get to know each other well enough. And so I think that makes us really susceptible to believing anything negative about and to other people.
That's a great point. And again, when you think that this is a narrative that, well, your schools are underperforming because this is a school where immigrants go. So you believe that this is the way that the system is. There's just, you don't question it because it's all you know, right? Because you don't go anywhere else. And when we talk about environmental work, for example, and people compare anybody that goes to Summerlin and said, why do they have more trees in Summerlin and we don't have any trees in East Las Vegas? And even think about the healthcare. There's not enough healthcare facilities. If you go around West or East Las Vegas, we don't have enough healthcare providers or any type of clinics that are community clinics. We don't. And so again, it becomes a system. This is all you know. You keep to yourself. You're not supposed to come to this other side of town because a lot of people don't look like you. Or your goal is to make gonna leave this community so I can go to Summerlin or Southwest or whatnot. Like you said, it's true. Go to West Side, everybody's like, oh, West, that's Black communities. East, that's Latinos. Southeast, that's the API community. And we barely think about where are we meeting each other. We always talk about meeting voters where they are at, which is true. You should. But what are we doing to bring these communities together so we can show East Las Vegas that there's a reason why you don't have enough green areas. There's a reason why your parks are closed, and the parks in Summerlin are the most beautiful parks. They feel like going to Summerlin to one of those parks is it's a road trip for the family. When we work bills for the outdoor bill to create more incentives for outdoor education and to give out grants to nonprofits and school to promote outdoors, I talked to students that have never been to Red Rock because that's in Summerlin. So they didn't think it was for them. So again, we are part of a system that makes you believe that what you have is this is what you deserve. And nothing is wrong, but this is because this is the way that it is for people like us, right? Like, do you have money to go to school? Oh, you don't? So don't worry about college. College is for people with money. So you want to live in a green area? Can you afford your water bill? So don't worry. Having green areas or more trees is for people that can afford to pay for water or golf clubs. So that continues to be a narrative, and it continues. And again, like who's telling us that's not the case? Who's going to East Las Vegas or West Las Vegas and talking to our communities and said that this is not okay? I know. I remember a few years back there was a grocery store in West Las Vegas selling expired food to our community, and Minister Stretch led an advocacy to hold them accountable, an advocacy campaign to hold them accountable, right? So it's like, who else was going into those grocery stores and said it's not okay to sell expired meat to our Black community? And so no one is going into our communities. I mean, I'm not saying no one, but not enough work. There's organizations doing great work, but it cannot just be Erika trying to reach Black women, not just be, at Make the Road trying to talk to Latinos, or Cecia working with one politician that maybe wants to make a difference in the community. Let's go back to the primary. We're both in our primaries. When I pull demographics for my campaigns and we're building strategies, it's all primarily people over 50 and Caucasian. And that's what it is. They're the ones making those decisions on behalf of everybody else. And I just don't know. At every primary, I just figure out how do we change it. I think that's a deeper conversation, but it's a lack of investment in our communities, and also this sentiment that we think that it's the way that it is for people that look like us.
So I have to ask, because I'm sure people wonder, and also people don't understand the immigration process, but you've been here since you're 16. Why has it taken so long for you to get citizenship?
Yeah, so I have been a permanent resident for 21 years. So going through the first part of the process was pretty easy because being able to come here with a visa, didn't really having to ask for any pardons or pay any penalties. And then when they give you your resident card, at first it's with I can't remember the term, but it's basically there's conditions for you to become a resident or a permanent resident, or a green card holder. And they give you the requirements. I mean, people don't understand that even if you're applying to adjust your status There are certain people that don't qualify just because they may have a chronic disease. If you're someone with, said, HIV, a refugee, you probably wouldn't qualify. So things like that go into place. And then once you are able to adjust your status, you have to go through a process to also like prove yourself that you won't become a burden to the government and whatnot. So you go through that process. I believe it was 3 to 5 years that I have to wait. Then you have to wait to become a citizen. You're not eligible to become a citizen right away. You have to wait another 5 years to become a citizen. So about 8-year waiting period to become eligible to become a citizen. And then, I was a single mom living paycheck to paycheck. I couldn't afford it for a very long time. And then another requirement is that you need to have all your taxes in order. In early 2010, I was working for a company that went out of business, and they didn't file the W-2 that they need to file with the IRS. So it messed up my taxes for that year. So I was not eligible to become a citizen until that was fixed. And it took me, because it requires money for you to hire somebody. So it's all these hurdles that, we always hear, like, do it the right way. Why are you waiting? And then when you are ready to do it, you have to pass health checks, background checks. You need to pay all the fees. And for people that are not fully fluent in English, they have to pass English tests. You have to pass a civic test, which a lot of native citizens or native speakers wouldn't pass. So it's all of that. And, led me to file a year ago after being a permanent resident for 20 years. And now when I went to my interview, you have to go through an interview. The first, they asked me if I had a passport picture, which you submit everything ahead of time, months ahead. And I didn't have a physical picture. I said, well, it's a new requirement. You need to have it. So you're going to have to go get your passport pictures. They'll stop the process, go get my passport pictures. Here's the picture. Oh, you need a background check from the municipal court. I've never heard of that. I already went through an extensive background check to get here. So they just don't want you to become a citizen. They just don't want you to legalize yourself. And so I don't think a lot of people understand that even if you have the ability to become a citizen, it's not just filling out the application and just become a citizen. So it takes money. And if you're living paycheck to paycheck, I was able to start the process 5 years ago to start the process because mutually that some of my friends over at DSA found out that the reason why I hadn't started my citizenship process was because I couldn't afford it. So they helped me fundraise the money, and I was able to start the process and finally file a year ago to just be waiting for over a year, especially on election year. I'm sure they're going to drag this into the end of the year after the general, because I was hoping that I could vote in the primary. So it didn't happen. And so I'm still waiting. You used to be able to go do your interview and they'll let you know, you were approved. Like I passed the civic test. I submitted all the paperwork. They asked me for more paperwork. We didn't. And they're still waiting. So I'm waiting to hear from them whether or not my citizenship is approved. And then I have to wait to get scheduled for the swearing ceremony. And those used to take 2 weeks. And I'm hearing that it's taking up to 6 months. So I don't anticipate to become a citizen this year.
Well, you're going through this long process, and so you obviously want to become an American citizen. I should ask, would you be a dual citizen with United States and Costa Rica, or would you just be an American citizen?
I will be dual.
Okay.
Yeah, it depends.
So you get to keep your other, okay. Because I always wonder, just because someone wants to live here or even become an American citizen, that doesn't mean that they don't want to still be whatever other citizen that they are, wherever they've come from and where their family is from, wanting to hold on to that too, not just in memory or in thoughts, but also physically still be that. I want to talk a little bit about democracy. You've been in this work for a long time and working alongside and for candidates that you feel deserve to have the opportunity to serve the people, but you've also worked on issues and talked to community members and voters, and you've spent some time up in Carson City, and so the legislative process and all of that, and so much you've been able to see. Do you think that we have a democracy? Well, actually, before I even ask you that, what is democracy to you? And then do you think we have democracy?
Well, from my point of view, democracy should be a fair system. It should give the ability to anybody, regardless of political parties. I mean, I can say, like, in my work, I don't agree with Republicans, but I fully support the right to vote for whoever they want. Especially as someone who's not a citizen, that is their American right. That is, I think, one of the highest privilege an individual who was born or naturalized in this country has the ability to vote. Democracy gives you voice, and it makes you feel part of something. I mean, I see it through the work I do when people vote and they feel so proud and they feel, well, at least I voted. We hear from people. And even if I don't agree with the way some people vote, I would always fight for people to have their right to vote. So that's democracy to me. And do we have a democracy? I think that is also an issue that a lot of immigrants care about. I understand that sometimes people migrate to the U.S. because they come from broken democracies where systems that are so corrupted in their countries that they make them feel that it doesn't matter who you vote for because this is already set up. It's set up a way that it's who's going to win. They even have a democracy. Some who come from communist countries. So the democracy is an issue that is also so important to the immigrant communities because a healthy democracy, it means the stability in that a lot of people left behind in their countries, right? For failed democracies. And, you see people from Venezuela that they have their democracy taken away from them. And they see the dangers of, some folks that are just want to be in power and systems that are breaking our democracy. So anyways, just to say do we have a democracy? We do because we do and we don't. So I'm thinking about Nevada, right? But I'm also thinking about what's going on in the South. And so I'm thinking about Nevada and the work that so many have done, like youth, Overstay Voices, to preserve our democracy and to empower our communities to be part of it. But I also know that there's also other forces working to make sure that is not accessible to everybody. So I feel like in Nevada, yes, we have a good system. We can do better, definitely. But nonetheless, we still have a system that is, to a certain extent, acceptable to people. But they're coming for that, too. We know they're coming for it. It's just a matter of time.
And so, as a budding American citizen, what is your version of the American dream? What does that look like for you?
Ooh, what a great question. The American dream, my perception of how I see the American dream is it's more of a society that gives its freedom to brown and Black people. Because as an immigrant, I learned the real American, like not the American that we think that exists outside of the U.S., that are looking at it through the other side, where people don't talk about Black Americans. In our countries, they only talk about American as white people. And until you're here, you realize that is more than that. So my American dream it's that America that I don't think it has existed before. We know it hasn't, that it gives a voice to all of us, that we're part of a system. And we talk about through all of this about broken systems and us doing our part to try to fix a system that has intentionally keeping people like us out of it or making us feel that we don't belong here. And it's more my American dream. It's more of that. It's our communities coming together. It's more representation. And I think American dream, the materialistic stuff, I think that's out the door at this point. People wanting to own a house, but we gotta liberate ourselves and our minds first in order to achieve the material stuff, the house, the education, the good job. And it goes beyond that. So my American dream it's very different. It's more community building. It looks more like a community that allows our young man to grow up, is less policing and less punishment for people that look like us. But at the same time, I don't know if that's ever been part of this America. And you and I had a conversation a long time ago that I remember we were sharing about are you proud of America? And I remember you telling me, I don't know if I'm proud of America because of the history of this country to my people. And that made me reflect too on like, why do we keep going through the same thing, the full circle over and over? Because it's an America that wasn't built for us.
Yeah. And sometimes I wonder like really what it means to be American. And I tell people all the time, or people who ask me, like, I don't know that I ever felt like an American until I left the country and spent time elsewhere. So when I spent extended time in Italy, it's the first time I think I felt like an American, because that's what they saw first, or I would say after I spoke. When they first saw me, I was some Black lady that might have been an African immigrant, because they have a larger number of African immigrants in Italy that come over, and they are treated very similarly to, I would say, a Mexican immigrant in the United States. And so some of the same rhetoric of they're stealing our jobs, they're lazy, they just want to feed off our system, they're criminals, whatever, all of that. There was a lot of the same rhetoric, but once I opened my mouth and they're talking to me and I'm speaking English, then their whole demeanor changed. And they're like, oh, you're American. And it was the first time I'd ever experienced white people relaxing some, almost like, oh, you're different. You're not one of those sort of situation. I don't know. It was very odd. And then they were interested in where I was from and what have you. Now, also, I know that American tourist equals dollars, right? So there's also that opportunity that I'm going to spend money in their stores. But I was safer to them because I wasn't coming after whatever resources they thought I might try to take. And it was like my first time of really feeling, I guess, what American is. Otherwise, I don't really think about it walking around on a day-to-day basis here in the United States. And I was born here. My parents were born here. My grandparents were born here. My great-grandparents were born here on back till we got pulled here, So, multi-generational American, and still not able to really define or know what that feels like to feel American is, I think, something to really dissect and unpack. And so wondering, do you think you'll feel different once you have gotten that notice and you're able to go to that swearing in and you would be an American? Do you feel like you'd feel different?
It's a very similar experience for me. When I leave the country, I am full-on American to everybody else, because when I go back home, people notice. They just know when sometimes people tell me, like, you're from here, but you're not from here. Like, you're from here, but you don't live here. When I go to Costa Rica, maybe my Spanish has changed. Maybe people say it's like even the way we smell, because our detergent is different from the detergent that they use in our countries. So when I go visit, there's those little things, and my family is like, smells like American. Because whenever like I take them clothes and it's like they smell and sleep the clothes, like, oh, smell like American. And then it's so different. And I learned that the only time that I don't feel American, I was like, well, I'm too American when I'm not in the US, but I'm not American enough when I'm in the US. So sometimes last year I was in Costa Rica. Again, I spent 16 years of my life in Costa Rica, and between Costa Rica and Panama. But then I only know one democracy. It's the United States democracy. This is the history that I know. There's also it's a mix of sometimes what is my real identity as someone that belongs here, doesn't belong there. Where do I belong? When I go back to my country and I try to go to a bank, I feel so lost. I started crying because I just didn't know how to navigate the system. And I just felt like, how can I not? This is my country. And they make me feel like I don't belong here anymore. And they see you as someone who's like, you left, you don't want to be here. I just had some people at an airport, the Costa Rican airport one day, being so rude to me. And the lady's like, you're a traitor. You left your country. So they make you feel that you give up on us. You give this up. This doesn't belong to you anymore. And then you come to the US and you all constantly feel that you're taking from people. So I think I can understand, right, of that. When people don't want to make you feel that you have the right to be here, that you don't belong here, but then like you go to where you think you belong and they make you feel like you don't belong there anymore. So I have had those identity crises quite a few times, especially in the past few years, as I'm getting older, as I'm trying to understand, what it means to be where do I belong, navigating even our careers. And so I think for me, my American dream as Cecia will be to become an American, because I really will love to participate in our democracy. Like, I want to go and vote one day, and feel like I get to have a voice. And so that American dream, the way that you feel American, is so complex, not just for immigrants. I mean, I acknowledge that through working with the Black community and listening to stories, that it's so complex. And we always talk about, we gotta, rebuild the system. And like, what are we trying to rebuild? Nothing has ever been built for us, So what are we trying to accomplish through the work that we do in politics? Again, at least myself, I'm still trying to find my way. This cannot continue to be the norm for the next 100 years. And maybe you and I won't see the change, but it's got to change at some point. We got to change some minds, because that's the only way that it's going to change. I mean, you and I are trying to do something, and there's people out there listening and trying to figure out, like, what do I need to do? We can all do something, and we may not see it in our lifetime, but I always think about the people that fought before us. So when I become an American, as a brown person, I can have the right to vote, even if they're trying to take it away. But there's some people, and especially in the civil rights movement, that gave up their lives for us to be able to go to school with everybody else. Even if our school are underfunded, we can still walk through those doors. I was still able to graduate from a school, go to an institution and get an education and get a piece of paper that validates that. But it wasn't always this way. And someone else died not seeing those changes. So I want to believe that with the work that we're doing today, we may not see the fruits of the work and the changes that we dream. That's my American dream. I want to see those changes, but it may not happen in my lifetime. But I want to believe that we are at least making others curious enough so they can continue the work when we're not up here anymore.
Because if it doesn't happen in our lifetime, it needs to happen in our daughter's lifetime. Like, it's just been way too long. Before we go, I do want to ask, because I know you work directly with candidates running campaigns, but thinking about the candidates that potentially could run in the next election or the election after that, what would you like to see, or what advice would you give to those who look like us, young women, middle-aged women, even, what have you, to encourage them to run and to run for any seat anywhere? Because I'm a big advocate of also not running for the one black seat or the one brown seat or whatever, that all the seats, a seat is open. If a seat is open, a seat is open. There's room for that voice and that person wherever. What advice or what wisdom or what would you impart to folks to encourage them to engage and to run?
This is what elections are for. No one owns anything. And we have good representation. We have good elected officials. So I get wrong. But I think that is no one owns their seat. And let the voters decide. And one thing I hear so much, and especially when I'm talking to women that want to run at some point, is that they're waiting for their turn. That's never going to come. No one is ever going to make, unless you become a yes man person to a system that they believe that I'm going to put you there, even, you look like the rest of the community, but it doesn't mean that you're going to come and fight for your community. You just got to fill in the blank for this community. So don't wait your turn. Don't believe that you have to wait. Just it's never going to be a right time. There's going to be great opportunities. Obviously, it's always easier when someone turns out, when it's an open seat, when you're able to gather some support, especially the financial support you need as a candidate to run for office. But you got to try. We're talking about, got to do your part. And we had bad policies, and because the people that are working those policies are not thinking about people like us. They're not always thinking about it. And so again, like, this is not to generalize. Doesn't apply to everybody, but there's a reason why we have elections, and it's to let people decide. It's to let democracy do its work. And so be part of that. Let democracy do its work. And especially stop listening to people that are telling you to wait your turn. Because there's never going to be a turn, especially for women of color. And so let's not be part of that problem. But don't wait your turn.
I think that's sound advice. Kind of like having a kid. There's never a right time. You're never going to be prepared enough. You're never going to be fully prepared. You're never going to have all the things. You just do it and you make it happen.
Yeah, especially, again, women of color. Nobody prepares for anything. We always have to figure out our way. So don't let that stop you from wanting to run for office or, do something, because we are our own support system. We are our own support system. And it's very scary. Remember the first time someone approached me to run a campaign, I was like, me? Really? Like, why me? And but unless there's people that look like us doing the work, then people are not going to understand why.
I think that's brilliant advice. Well, Cecia, thank you so much for being a guest on Sticky Note Conversations. I knew this would be a good conversation, and I knew that you would impart lots of wisdom. And I really enjoy learning more about your story. And I do hope that you return and we can continue the conversation, because we can certainly unpack, I think, even more issues that are prevalent within the community, not just the obvious Latino or Black community, but also just as women, and the things that we need to concentrate on and we need to advocate for to make sure we have all of the resources we need and the equity that we deserve. And so I would love to continue that conversation with you in the future. But in the meantime, thank you so much for being a guest on Sticky Note Conversations.
Thank you for having me, Erika.
I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as we did. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening to Sticky Note Conversations with Erika Washington. Hosted and executively produced by Erika Washington. With editing by Black Gypsy LLC. Special thanks to KUNV 91.5 in Las Vegas. This show is powered by Make It Work Nevada, a project of Tides Advocacy.